In the heart of Baytown, Texas, where the hum of industry meets the rhythm of everyday life, one voice has chronicled the community's journey for over a century, the Baytown Sun.
The Baytown Sun started in 1919 as the Goose Creek Gasser, and it was started by Frank Boyer, who had been working for the Chronicle. Boyer sold the Gasser in 1924 to Hugh Eccles Jr., Clarence Fortenberry, and Bell's brother-in-law, William Bonds. They changed the name to the Semi-Weekly Tribune, published by the Tribune Printing Company, with the slogan, "A landlocked harbor where the ship channel meets the sea." Between 1928 and 1929, it became the Daily Tribune, and by 1931, it had moved to 119 West Pierce in the old Tribune building. They shared space with Mathern's office supply. In the Tri-Cities in 1931 was the free paper Tri-Cities News Herald. During the Depression, few business owners could afford to advertise in 4 different newspapers, so the Daily Tribune, the Telegram, and the Tri-City News Herald merged into the Tri-Cities Sun, first appearing in 1931, published by the newly formed People's Printing Company. In LaPorte, meanwhile, the paper over there was the Daily News Tribune, and they hired Fred Hartman as a sports editor. And with a ferry established between Tabbs Bay and Morgan's Point, the LaPorte paper claimed that it served Baytown, Goose Creek, Pelly, and LaPorte. The Tri-Cities Sun responded by dropping the Tri-Cities part of their name and renaming it the Daily Sun, so it could also serve all 4 communities. Fred Hartman actually started his career over there in LaPorte, but in 1935, Bob Mathern hired Fred Hartman as circulation manager and sports editor in Baytown. Following the Tri-Cities consolidation and the chartering of the city of Baytown in 1948, the only daily newspaper became the Baytown Sun in 1949.
I think the Baytown Sun is very important because that's where you get your local news. That's where you get your small town, your town. I know we're not a small town, but it has a small town feel.
Oh, local news. You know, we're so used to instant news now with, internet and everything. Something happens in Japan or something like that, or halfway around the world. We know about it instantly. We don't have to wait for a newspaper. But if somebody down the street got hurt in an automobile accident, you're not going to read it on the internet. But your local paper, it tells about a local accident or something, or a birth, or a death of a local person. That's your newspaper give you your personal local news that nobody else wants to give you.
And so it helps to keep the public educated as to things that go on, not just in Baytown, but also throughout the state. So I'm very comfortable with what they put out.
The freedom of press is absolutely important. It's the way the public finds out what's going on.
Freedom of the press is embedded in our Constitution and what the founders set up for our democracy. You cannot have a democracy without freedom of the press. We have to be able to write freely on what is going on with the institutions that we cover.
And the freedom of the press also gives us access to information that someone may not have off the top of their head and stuff. It dives deeper into whatever the story is.
If you don't have freedom of the press, you don't know what's going on, and people are just doing whatever the heck they want to do, and that's no good. People have to know what's going on in their government, in their towns. It's very, very important for people to be informed.
We aim to always publish the truth. In professional journalism, we have rules that we have to adhere to. We have to check sources and check facts and take our time and make sure that we're writing an accurate story. And a lot of the noise that's out there does not do that. It changes all the time. When I first got into this business, a lot of the work was done manually, piece by piece, running papers through a wax machine. It was really an art to be able to build the paper that way. We had a press at the time. The press department and camera department, they worked miracles back there.
I worked a span of 20 years at the Baytown Sun. I was a photojournalist for the longest time. Then I became a press camera person, so I took there's a big camera that had that got shot. It shoots pictures into dots so it can go to the press. So we had to go out and take the pictures. Then we had to go in to the darkroom, get it all printed, get it ready, get it to the managing editor so they knew what they wanted to run, kind of pictures. They would mark it, size it the way they wanted to shoot it with that big camera I told you I turned into shooting at one point. And they would send it to the press and they would make a negative and burn a plate.
We have since sold our press. We send all of our pages digitally to our printing plant in Galveston, the Daily News. And everything works faster. It still works the same way though. We're still gathering the news and putting the stories together. Just the production part has changed, and it changes daily.
So over time, of course, printing presses have evolved. We used to print our papers right then and there. You know, we put it all together. We'd get this is what I did when I was an intern there. We'd get a board, and if you look at a paper that was printed out, and if you found a mistake, you get a little X-Acto knife, you get to cut it out and go print it out, the right word, and then cut it out and paste it on there, and that's what get printed. That took a little bit of time. Now we have this program called InDesign by Adobe, and we can just put everything on there electronically, sit down on a computer and put it all together, ship it to Galveston, prints out, gets delivered to your front door.
So we have had many different printing cycles. We have been 6 days a week, 5 days a week, and right now we are 3 days a week for the printed version ever since the COVID pandemic. All of our newspapers cut a few days out of their printing cycles. However, even though we're only 3 days of a printed paper, we publish the news 24/7 online. So digitally, we are still the daily news source.
I know a lot of people like to read probably the Baytown Sun on their computer. I don't. I like something in my hand. And I guess it's because I'm older. And, you know, the information's there. It's something in your hand. To me, that's very important.
Not everybody likes to go online and read. I like the hard copy part of the newspaper. And so I read it from cover to cover. Sometimes I'll pick it up and read it twice to see if there's anything that I've missed, because that's what keeps me in touch with what goes on in the Baytown area and really what goes on even outside of the Baytown area.
We have a very loyal readership of the senior population that like the actual printed paper. They like to get up in the morning, drink their coffee, and have the paper in their hands. The younger generation, I think, gets their news from a lot of different sources, maybe on their phone, their iPad, their computer, digitally more often.
Digital age, you know, as soon as something happens, boom, you can get it on there within minutes.
Even though we get a printed Baytown Sun, there's one on the computer. And for younger people, younger generation, I think that's very important. And I'm glad they do it.
The stories in there that are pertinent to both older and younger generations, I think they both get something out of it and stuff. So it's important to anybody who reads it. Doesn't matter what your age is, how long you've been reading the Sun, if you're a new reader or an old reader or whatever. So it's just, I think it's just very, very important to both.
Well, I hope you younger people read, even if you go online, read the newspaper, find out what's going on in your city. That's important. You know, you need to be aware of what's happening in Baytown. So at the time when I was a paper boy, and I was probably 12 or 13 years old, the town that I grew up in, where I delivered papers, you know, there were about 5,000 people. So the paper sometimes was like only 3 pages. So when we would get to the back of the building, we would get our papers, let's say 50 or 60, and we would take time and roll them up into pretty small bundle, because 3 pages is not a lot of print, and we would take and turn them like this, and that let us throw the paper, and it would fly pretty good into the people's yard. And so that's what we did. I would ride down the road and throw papers. It was kind of fun. Not good when it was raining or when it was cold, but we did it. And it was important. You know, the small community needed to know what was going on. Besides that, they wanted to know what everybody's business was. When you live in a small community, that happens. But, you know, getting the news out to people was great.
Where else can you go to work doing things you love to do where every day is different? Where your team designs from scratch an entirely different product every day, manufactures and delivers it within 24 hours, and the next iteration is started immediately after. Where your responsibility is to report on the doers and achievers, the students, the schools, local sports, service clubs, politicians, the cities, the crime, births and deaths, the economic development, and the changes of our growing community.